Hello and welcome to this continuing series on our discussion of Chapter 2 from your textbook Indian Economic Development on Indian economy from 1950 to 1991. And in today's session, we'll talk about Indian agriculture and you'll learn about one important thing in agriculture is the land reform. We have learned that the British government appointed these intermediaries in the form of zamindars to collect tax for them. But in due course of time, these land zamindars or the intermediaries, because of the power given to them, they misuse that and collect tax not only to the British but for themselves as well. And so the farmers of India became landless. Okay, so that's why we need to change that. In order to develop agriculture, we have to change that system of land holding in India, and that's called land reform. At the time of independence, the land tenure was characterized by intermediaries like zamindars, jagirdars, etc., who merely collected rent from the actual tillers of the soil without contributing towards improvement of the farm. That's the problem Indian faced. That's the problem of agriculture. And after independence, we saw low productivity of agricultural sector that forced India to buy food from outside, especially America. So we have agriculture, majority people depending on it, but still not able to feed our own people. So we need to change that. We need to bring about equity. And that equity in agriculture is called for land reform, which primarily means change in the ownership of land holdings by conferring ownership to the landless. You understand, when they have possess of land, then only they can improve upon farming. Then only agriculture as a whole will develop. So what do we mean by, how do we go about this land reform by and conferring ownership to land holdings? Is first thing is what we did in India after independence. Steps were taken to abolish these zamindars, the intermediaries, and to make the tillers the real owners of land. That is the first thing that characterized the land reform in India. Abolish zamindars and give back land to the farmers, the landless farmers. Okay, and you understand by doing so means it gives them incentive to improve. It's not an improve on agriculture. And the abolition will go first to this yellow highlighted paragraph. The abolition of intermediaries meant that some 200 lakh tenants, landless, came into direct contact with the government. They were thus freed from being exploited by the zamindars. The ownership conferred on tenants gave them the incentive to increase output, and this contributed to growth in agriculture. So that's the main intention of bringing about a legislation on land reform by giving them ownership of land. And first thing is to abolish the intermediaries. And secondly, second characteristics of this land reform was to declare on land holding, land ceiling. I mean to say, what do you mean land ceiling? Land ceiling means fixing the maximum size of land which could be owned by an individual. That means those who own land, if they cross that limit, the upper limit, then they need to give away that part of land. The purpose of land ceiling was to reduce the concentration of land ownership into few hands, because only few rich landowners own a mass chunk of land, whereas majorities of farmers are landless or marginal farmers. So that's a problem. So by declaring this land ceiling means they'll take away part of land owned by these big landowners, declare it as a surplus, and redistribute back to the landless. So you have four important characteristics here. First is abolition of intermediaries. Secondly, land ceiling. Third is to declare surplus over and above the ceiling. And fourth, and importantly, is to redistribute back the land to the landless. These are the land reform legislation that has been implemented in India for the welfare of the landless and for the development of agriculture as a whole. However, there are problems associated with the implementation of this policy, which we will deal in later class. So what you've learned? You've learned the need for and the type of land reforms implemented in agricultural sector in India.